guys, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be telling you different things that you should be considering before you sign a lease for your first apartment. So I feel like it wasn't that long ago, even though it's been a few years since I got my first apartment. And there were a lot of things that I knew up front because of friends and family, and then there were a lot of other things that were a little bit unexpected that happened. So I just wanted to share all of the things that came up and the experience that I had, so that if you are looking for your first apartment, or you will be soon, that you can be prepared and plan for them ahead of time. So the first thing is deciding what you can actually afford. I know that in our town right now, and a lot of towns across the US, rent is insane right now. I'm talking like $1,400 for a one-bedroom apartment. It can be really crazy, really discouraging, and really frustrating if you're trying to move out on your own, but it's also important not to max out your entire budget on your rent and your living expenses, because you're gonna want some free money, some money to save, some money to have some fun and live life. So it's important to find that amount that works for you. Now, a lot of people recommend that you should have 30% set aside for your monthly rent, and it depends, like some financial advisors say that should include like utilities and everything like that. Some say that should be just rent. Ultimately, I recommend that you take a look at your budget, you take a look at your fixed expenses. Maybe you have some student loans, maybe you have a car payment. Look at the various expenses that you have, groceries and your phone bill and everything else. Add them all up. Put a little bit extra aside so you can put it towards savings or fun times or whatever, and then look at what you really have left to spend. And if you can even get it a little bit lower than that, that's also even better, because I know how much it sucks when the majority of your paycheck is going towards your rent and you feel like you're constantly strapped for cash. And it's not a fun experience, especially when you're stuck in a one-year lease. So really analyze your budget. Try not to spend too much on your rent, and be mindful of the things that you might have to give up if you spend more on your rent each month. The next thing is to be aware of some potential hidden fees. I think it's funny because a lot of apartment complexes will boast certain things about their apartments and what makes them better than others, when in reality you're actually paying a lot extra for those. So some of those things could include a parking spot, carport or garage. Sometimes those storage units that they have are costing extra. When I moved into my first apartment, it shocked me that ceiling fans costed an extra like $25 a month or something like that if you had ceiling fans in your apartment. I don't understand that, but you'd be surprised at some of the fees that they can tack on. I've also noticed some other ones lately, like a trash valet and different things like that. So when you're getting a tour and you're walking around a complex, make sure that you ask. If they don't say up front, make sure that you're asking, does this cost extra? Because just because the apartment that you're renting is within your budget doesn't mean that all the extra things that they're going to tack on are in your budget. So be mindful of that, and don't be afraid to ask the people that are helping you, giving you a tour and whatnot. The next thing I think that's really important is to make a list of what you need and what you want, because depending on your budget, depending on the location and everything, you might not be able to get all of your wants, but if you can get all of your needs, that's okay. It's important to figure out what's really important to you in an apartment, so that when you're looking, you can make note of it. Like, is a fireplace really important to you? Is having like granite countertops really important to you? Or a kitchen island or an open layout? What are the things that are really important to you that are gonna make you feel comfortable and happy where you're living? That's just gonna help you narrow everything down and find a place that's really gonna work well for you. The fourth thing is to see what the area around the apartment complex is like, because I found that even if like the apartment complex itself is really nice, maybe the surrounding area isn't quite as nice. And I realized this when I moved into my first apartment. The apartment complex was super nice. They were brand new. They had just been built, but the surrounding area was much older, much more lower income, and a little bit run down. But I never felt unsafe there, so I still did it. But it's important to think about what how safe you feel there, if you're okay with the area, if it's close to restaurants you like and grocery stores and activities that you like to do. Is it close to your work if that's important to you? Try to scope out the area, see if you like it. Take time either before or after your appointment to really drive around or walk around and really get a feel for the area around you and see if you like it, because that will really make a difference in whether or not you really like where you're living. The fifth thing is to ask yourself, how close is it to your work? And is it important for it to be close to your work? I personally hate driving and commuting, so if I can be super close to work, I mean within walking distance of work, then I'm super happy. But maybe a longer commute doesn't bother you. Maybe you prefer being a certain area even though it's farther than work. It really just depends on what you prefer, but something that I always like to bring up is that just to be mindful of your commute time, because if it takes you 15 minutes to get to work and 15 minutes to get home, that's 30 minutes out of your day that you're not going to be able to spend doing something you like or spend with your family or whatever. And if it's even longer than that, it's just going to add up more and more. At one of my jobs, it took like an hour to commute to work. So that was 2 hours out of every day that I would be commuting on top of a 10-hour shift. So it basically gave me no life during the week because I just didn't have time to do anything extra. So be mindful of that. If living close to work is important to you, then make sure you put that on your needs list. The next thing is to ask yourself how long you plan on staying in the apartment. And this is really important because sometimes you can get leases for shorter periods of time, and sometimes they're just the standard 1-year lease. Sometimes you can get them for longer. And you can really kind of negotiate the monthly price of your place depending on how long you live. It usually costs a little bit more if you don't stay there as long, but if you know that you're going to stay there for more than a year, it might be worth signing a longer lease if you can get the rate to be a little bit cheaper each month. I personally still like the 1-year leases just because it's enough time for you to get a feel for the place, and if you like it, you can stay longer, and if you don't like it, you can leave. So it just depends on what you like and what works for you, but that's definitely something you can bring up if you know you're going to be staying in that place for a long period of time. So the next thing I want to discuss is the different fees to expect up front. So in order to apply to an apartment complex, you're going to have to pay an application fee, and my friend just recently applied to an apartment complex, and they said that she had to also do an administrative fee, which is not something I'd really heard of before. So typically application fees are $40 to $50. Sometimes they're even waived if an apartment complex is doing a promotion. Administrative fees can really be all over the board. My friend, she had to pay $150 for an administrative fee. So be mindful of that. That could also happen as well on top of the application fee. And then the other thing that's usually up front is your cleaning deposit and or your regular deposit. So normally in apartment complexes, I've noticed they only ask for a cleaning deposit, which is normally just like a couple $100s. I haven't really had to live in an apartment complex where they expect you to pay like first and last month's rent. So it just depends. Deposits differ depending on what apartment complex you look at. So make sure that you're also asking these questions when you meet up with them. The next thing to figure out is if you will need a co-signer. So this was something that I totally thought I would never have to worry about because I had a great credit score. I was making plenty of money, like it wouldn't be an issue. And the first complex I moved into, they were like, no, you're gonna need a co-signer because you don't have a long enough history of living in an apartment complex. So they basically told me I either had to get a co-signer or I had to pay a much higher deposit to move into the apartment complex. So unfortunately I didn't have a co-signer, so I had to pay more money up front, which was fine. But this is just something to be aware of. You might need a co-signer if you either have low credit or no credit at all. If you kind of have a lower income and you're really stretching your budget on your rent, if you don't have a long work history, or if you don't have a long living history, they could really make you get a co-signer for really whatever reason they want. So just be mindful of that and be aware that you might have to pay extra money up front, or you might have to get a co-signer to help you out. The ninth thing is to figure out if the amenities are worth it. I'm noticing that in the area that I live in right now, all of the apartments that are popping up are luxury apartments, and some of them have some really interesting amenities like a dog cleaning area and a yoga studio and a sauna room and a massage room and a cycling room, and like there's just all these amenities that's like, I don't need this, I'm not going to use it, so why am I going to pay extra for it? A lot of apartment complexes will have simple amenities like a pool and a fitness center. Some even have tennis courts and basketball courts, and you'll find that if you're doing lots of research, you'll find different amenities depending on the apartment complex. So just ask yourself, you know, if a higher rent is worth all of the amenities that are being offered, or if you're even going to use them, is it worth it to you, or would it be worth it going somewhere else? Just be mindful of that when you're looking. The next thing is to really just look at a lot of different places, especially if it's your first apartment. It's kind of hard to gauge what you like and don't like yet. So it's important to go to lots of different places, get a feel for the apartment complex, get a feel for the management team, get a feel for the area, see how far they are from work, from the things that you like, and really just get a feel for them. So look at several different places. There's nothing wrong with it. You can totally go, you can still grab an application, and you don't necessarily have to turn in if you don't want to, but just take the time, make the appointments, and look at multiple places. And the last thing is to read reviews. Go to Google, type in the apartment complex, and read the reviews. A lot of times I find it really hard with apartment complex reviews, especially because usually it seems like it's only the angry people that write reviews, but just be aware of some of the things that they talk about. A lot of the things that I typically notice are issues with maintenance and how long it takes to get maintenance done. Maybe the complex is really dirty, or maybe it's really loud, or there's never any parking. Those are some of the common ones that I always see, but just read through the reviews. If you're seeing a lot of the same things over and over and over again, then make a note of it, make sure you ask about it, or pay attention to that when you go and visit to see if that's really true or not. It's also important to make sure you're reading some of the newer reviews. Like if it's like 6 months or older, it's kind of hard to say because apartment complexes can change a lot within a short period of time because people are just coming and going all the time. Read the reviews, but take it with a grain of salt and kind of make your own impressions from it. But I found that you can learn a lot about apartment complexes from those reviews, so it's worth taking a look at before you move in. Alright guys, those are my 11 tips for you for moving into your first apartment, questions to ask. I hope that these will help you out if you are looking for a place. I hope that you find a place that you really like and that works the best for you, and I hope these tips will help you find that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.